it's Affy, and today I am here to do my May wrap up. I was co-host in the Afterathon, and that was a lot of fun. I read quite a few books, so I'm pretty proud of myself for that. Obviously, it was competition based, but I'm always happy when I can get more than like 5 books read per month, because it doesn't happen very often. I read 10 books in May. I'm gonna try and make sure that this is not an overly long video. I tend to get a little lengthy with my reviews, so I'm going to try and be a little more succinct so that this video isn't like an hour long. So the first book that I read in May is a Cinderella retelling. This is by Sophie Jordan. This is One Night with You, and because I was part of the Cinderella team, I did try and read as many books as I could that were either Cinderella or some type of fairy tale retelling. This one was good, but not. So I'll try and explain. In this book we have Jane and Seth, and Seth is an earl. When Jane and Seth grew up, they knew each other. I think they were neighbors or something like that. And so they knew each other growing up, and he and her were the best of friends, but then he ended up falling in love with her sister. Her sister was his childhood crush, and that crushed her heart because she, was in love with him. So cut to several years later, and she's a widow, and she is staying with her brother-in-law and his wife, and they treat her like shit. They have basically turned her into the governess for their children. One night, her friends convince her to sneak out to go to a masquerade ball. She bumps into her brother-in-law, who doesn't obviously know who she is because it's a masquerade ball, and he's getting all handsy with her, and so she flees into a room trying to get away, and in that room is Seth. They have like this quiet little moment, but she kind of runs out of the room before they go any further. He calls her Aurora, and that's like his name for this mystery woman is Aurora. Jane decides that she's going to dress up as Aurora again and go and find Seth. So she goes to the Vauxhall Gardens, I believe it is, because she knows that he's going to be there, and she wears the same dress and the same mask that she had worn at the masquerade ball, and she kind of gets him to like sneak off with her, and they end up, making love against a tree. And she is basically like, it was really, really fun. I wanted to have this one night with you, and now you need to forget me, and I'm just gonna go. And so she runs off. This one started out really good. The way that he, like his mentality about her and the way that he was thinking about her was just kind of skeezy. It was really annoying because at the end there's supposed to be some groveling done by him, and he barely grovels, barely grovels before she's like, okay. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. Like I said, I did enjoy the first half of it. There were definitely some really good scenes. It's just that it didn't end very well. The next book that I read is by Victoria Alexander. This is a Princess and the Pea retelling, and it's called Princess and the Pea. And in this one we have Cicely and Jared, and Jared is an earl. So Cicely is an American. She has a friend who was talking to some guy in England, and her friend was dumped by this guy. And so Cicely, who's a bit of a spitfire, decides that she wants to go to England and find this earl that her friend got dumped by and make him fall in love with her and then dump him. So she convinces her parents that they should go to London for a season, and their parents take them. And while she's there, she happens to meet a guy named Jared. And Jared is into automobiles, and so he takes her for a ride in his automobile. Kind of have this fun moment together. And when he mentions that he's going to Paris, she somehow finds her way to Paris and bumps into him in Paris, and they hang out a few times there. Unchaperoned at one point, and they just really start to fall for one another. And so she goes back to London, and she's at a party, and somebody's like, oh, we want to introduce you to the Earl of so-and-so. And she turns around, and it's Jared. They go out to the gardens and basically have this moment of like, oh my God, I'm in love with you, and I'm in love with you too, and you know, all that stuff. So while they're out there, he makes a comment about being broke and how it's perfect that she is an heiress. He doesn't have to worry about money anymore. And she is basically like, the fuck? She gets really upset, and basically the rest of the story is them arguing about, you know, her being an heiress and him wanting to marry her for money, and not because he actually cares about her. I had a hard time with this one because there were times where I was really enjoying it and times where it was irritating the shit out of me, and I felt like there wasn't like a consistent story. It was just them kind of hanging out and like arguing. It was definitely kind of slow and tedious in the middle of the book. Like, I don't really remember much of what happened in the middle. I really just mostly remember like the crust, the outer edges of the story. Also, I feel like they fell in love a little too quickly. At least for my taste. I mean, just because you hang out together in Paris doesn't mean you're in love. I gave this one 4 stars. I'm gonna drop it down to 3.5 just because, like I said, the middle of it just kind of boring, and I just don't know what to make of it. So I've read other Victoria Alexander books that I have enjoyed, so I'm not sure what went wrong with this one, but I didn't. Yeah. So the next book that I read is by Teresa Medeiros. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so this is Yours Until Dawn. I read it years ago and remember enjoying it, but I couldn't remember all the details, and upon reread, I think I like it even more than I did the first time. In this book, we have Gabriel and Samantha. Gabriel is a war hero, and he has come back from the war. He's blind, and he's really upset about it. Samantha shows up, and she's there to be his nurse. And at first, he tries everything he can to get her to leave. She starts doing things like helping him figure out like where all the furniture is in the house. She helps him get like a walking stick. This one is really, really good. I enjoyed myself. After the first 2 books I read, this one was a nice respite. So yeah, I gave this one 5 stars. I think the first time I read it, I gave it 4 stars. But there was kind of a twist at the end that I hadn't remembered happening, and it kind of made things even more interesting than it already was, and made me like the book that much more. 4th book I read was part of a read-along. I think it was the Tea and Biscuits with Tara and B read-along, if I'm not mistaken. This is The Truth About Love and Dukes. This is by Laura Lee Gerke. And in this one, we have Irene and Henry. Henry is a duke. And Irene is the writer of a newspaper. And she has a section in her newspaper called Dear Lady Truelove, where she gives advice. Henry shows up one day and he is pissed off because his mother, who is an older woman, has basically decided she's going to run off and marry some Italian guy. And he thinks this guy is a fortune hunter, and he's just really annoyed because she took the advice of Lady Truelove, and that's why she's decided to do this. And so he's like, Lady Truelove is the reason my mom is doing all of this, and I want her to fix this problem. Irene is just kind of like, it's a newspaper column, like, your mom can do whatever she wants, she doesn't have to take the advice. But he's like super upset and he won't take no for an answer. He goes and he buys her newspaper out from under her. He basically tells her that she can keep the newspaper column if she comes and stays with his family and is able to convince his mom not to marry this Italian guy. And it's dumber than dumb, but it is what it is. It was, to me, it was the dumbest premise ever. I was just like, this, honestly, I despised Henry. I think he should have been slapped a few times back and forth, not like one side, but like back and forth like that. He deserved that kind of slapping. He was just obnoxious and rude. Extremely bossy. He was very, very bossy. Didn't like being told what to do. And he was very dukely. He was very much of a duke. He was like, everything that I say goes and nobody tells me anything. I do what I want. And it just made him a very annoying character. I couldn't get past how much I despised him. Thankfully, I wasn't the only one that felt this way. When I watched the show for the read-along, pretty much everybody hated Henry. So I felt justified in my feelings for him. But this one, I ended up giving 3 stars. I struggled. The next book that I read was for the Hathaway's read-along. This is Lisa Kleypas. This is Love in the Afternoon, and this is the last book in the Hathaway's series. And this book is Beatrix Hathaway and Christopher. Christopher has returned from the war, and he and Beatrix have been writing each other while he was gone, but he doesn't know that because she was supposed to be somebody else. She was basically writing as a whole nother person. It's really cute because he has this dog that he had with him during the war, and this dog is just like frazzled because of everything that happened to it during the war. This dog is just whacked out. And she keeps telling him, like, I'm really good with pets. Like, let me take your dog and I will help train him for you, because he's going to London for a couple weeks. And so he's like, no, my dog is going to stay at my house and my staff are going to take care of the dog. Like, the dog will be fine. But then the dog is making so much of a ruckus, and she shows up and she's like, just give me the damn dog, like, I'll take care of it. And his staff are like, oh, thank God. And so she takes the dog, and while he's gone for a couple months in London, she basically takes him from a whacked out dog to a very calm and like collected and very well trained dog. And he realizes how much his dog has changed, and he's like, oh, okay, well, thank you for that. And then he starts kind of hanging out with the Hathaways, and slowly but surely he kind of figures it out that the woman that wrote him those letters was actually Beatrix. This one is really, really cute. I gave it 5 stars again. I love the Hathaway series. So the next book is by Lenora Bell. This was a Cinderella retelling. This is How the Duke Was Won. And This one was actually pretty good. So we've got Charlene and James is a duke. Charlene is the bastard daughter of an earl. She has grown up in a brothel because her mom is a courtesan. One day, a woman shows up and is the wife of said earl. And she takes one look at Charlene and she's like, "You look exactly like my daughter. I need you to come with me. I will pay you a shit ton of money. All you have to do is pretend to be my daughter and help her win the hand of a duke." Charlene is trying to get her sister and her mother out of the situation they're in. And the money that this woman is willing to pay her is a lot. And so she's basically like, do I really have a choice? She goes with her to James's house, and James is a duke. His brother and his dad have both died, and so now he's the duke. He has to marry very quickly and have children very quickly, and so he decides he's going to invite several women to his country home to basically test them out or have a competition to see which one he should marry. Charlene walks in there and immediately causes a ruckus, and so he's got his eye on her from the jump. This one was just, it was funny. The other women that are there for the competition are pretty interesting, and their moms are all very like, "Oh, how dare you say that to my daughter?" I gave it 4 stars. I think the only reason I didn't give it 5 is because it didn't give me like a 5-star feel. But outside of that, I didn't have any issues with it. So the next book I read is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is Elizabeth Hoyt, To Beguile a Beast. And I think this one does have a step back. Yes, it does. And so in this one, we have Helen and Sir Alistair. Helen is running away from her baby daddy. She was basically the girlfriend of a duke. She's tried to leave with her children and he won't let her. So she talks to a friend who tells her, you know, take your kids and go stay with Sir Alistair, who lives in Scotland. So she shows up with her 2 kids, and it's the middle of the night, and he almost doesn't let them in, but he's like, there's children, so I guess I have to let them in. So he lets them stay for the night, and then in the morning he gets a carriage to come and take them away. But Helen turns around and comes back, and she comes back with like a cook and a maid, because he didn't have anybody living in the castle with him. He's a recluse, and he just is in the house by himself, just this giant house, by himself, not talking to anybody or doing anything. And so she just comes back with like a cook and a maid and a footman, and she's like, by the way, you needed some staff, so I hired you some. And he's like, didn't I tell you to leave? And she's just like, oh no, you need a maid. We're gonna be your maid for you. Like, we're gonna help you out. And so finally he's like, oh my gosh, whatever. He's one of those people that's like, he doesn't really like to have children around, but he starts to fall for these kids because they're just so cute. And he obviously starts to fall for Helen. I put in my notes that her baby daddy was a bitter bitch because he didn't want her and her kids, but he refused to let them go. So for this book, I gave it 4 stars. Really had a good time with it. This was based in the late 1700s versus the 1800s, which is where the majority of the historical romance books I read are based. So that was a little different and a little fun to read about. So the next book I read is another Teresa Medeiros. This, I think, is a Cinderella retelling. I'm not 100% sure. It reads kind of as a Cinderella retelling, so I'm gonna say it's a Cinderella retelling. But this is Charming the Prince. And in this one we have Lady Willow and Banner the Bold. So this one is set in, I believe, the 1200s. Let me double check. The 1300s. So this is much, much, much earlier than I usually read. We have Willow. She is the daughter of a gentleman. I don't remember what her dad is, but he's some type of titled man. And her mother dies and he remarries. And the woman he remarries comes with all these children. And she has even more children with her dad, and these kids just treat Willow like shit. So when a man shows up and says he's looking for a wife for his lord, she basically jumps at the chance because she's like, I gotta get the hell out of here. I'm so sick and tired of all my siblings. And so she goes with this guy to get married to Banner, and Banner happens to be like a war hero, I think. He's like this guy that is just really, really good at fighting wars. He goes out to do these wars and he takes down everybody and comes back alive every time. And people fear him all over the lands and yada, yada, yada. So she goes to marry Banner, and when she arrives, she gets out of the carriage. She walks up to him, he hands her a baby, and is basically like, here you go. And there's all these children standing all around him, and she's like, the hell? So she starts to realize he's got a ton of kids. So she hands the baby back to him. She goes back in the carriage, and she just sits there. Because she's super pissed off at the fact that nobody told her that she would have to deal with more kids. It was so funny. I just remember thinking to myself, like, I would have punched him in the face if he did that to me. Just, I step out and you immediately hand me a baby. Like, your throat is getting punched. Like, I just was laughing so hard. That scene just, it almost took me out. Yeah. This one was just a lot of fun. Banner is one of those people that's like, everybody's scared of him, like on the battlefield. But when it comes to kids, he's terrified of the kids. Banner has this thing about how he doesn't want to get anybody else pregnant, and so he won't sleep with her. And it's really funny. At some point, they learn about the idea of like pulling out. I guess they didn't know that was a thing. And so they're like, oh my gosh, we can do it all the time now. I just thought that was so funny. They were going at it like rabbits after that. I was just cracking up. This one was fun. I had a lot of fun with this one. I ended up giving it 4 stars. And yeah, second Teresa Medeiros book I read in May that I also enjoyed. So yeah, she's on a good streak with me. The next book I read is the #1 most well-known Cinderella retelling. This is Julia Quinn, An Offer from a Gentleman. And this one is Sophie and Benedict. Sophie was her dad's... She was basically a bastard, and her dad decided that he would take care of her anyway. But when he married her stepmother, Araminta, her stepmother, hated her. And so when her father died, her stepmother relegated her to becoming a maid. The staff at the home one year decide they're going to help her prepare to go to a masquerade ball. This is Lady Bridgerton's annual masquerade ball. And they're like, we want you to go and we want you to have fun. They find a dress for her and get her sent off to this party, and she meets Benedict while she's there. They go onto this like private balcony and they just have this conversation and they dance together, and do they kiss? I think they do kiss. But it's just this magical night, and then she has to run away because, you know, obviously she has to get back before they realize she's gone. And so Benedict, for 3 years now, has been trying to find this woman. Sophie gets kicked out of her stepmother's home after her stepmother finds out that she went to the masquerade ball, and she ends up working for this family somewhere out in the country, and their son is very handsy. He's always trying to touch her and sleep with her, and finally he has a party one day and all his friends are trying to attack her and basically rape her when Benedict shows up and puts a stop to it. She's trying to leave. She's like, I have to get out of here. I can't stay living with this family because of the son. Like, I can't do it anymore. And so he's like, I'll take you to my place and you can figure out what you want to do then. And so he takes her to his place, his cottage, my cottage. He takes her to my cottage, and the story kind of goes on from there. I remember not liking Benedict as much the first time I read the book. The first time I read it, I felt like there were a couple moments where he was kind of rude. And I mean, he's a little pushy. I'll say that he's pushy. I don't think he's rude anymore, but he's definitely pushy with her. I didn't hate him in the way I did the first time I read it. I still prefer the TV version of Benedict, but I didn't hate him this time. So, but yeah, I enjoyed myself. It was nice doing a reread, just because, like I said, the show is going to be doing this book for next season, and I'm really excited for that. So it was nice to reread this book before that happens. And I think I gave it 4 stars again. I'm pretty sure I gave it 4 stars the first time I read it, but I gave it 4 stars this time. Enjoyed it, had a good time, and yeah. The last book that I read is Teresa Medeiros. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is The Bride and the Beast. And in this book, we have Gwendolyn and Bernard. And when Gwendolyn is, I think, 8 years old or 10 years old, she's got a crush on this little boy named Bernard. And Bernard is the son of the Laird. She's got this crush on him, and then the Battle of Culloden happens, and his family is killed. And so years later, she's living in the village with her sisters. Her sisters are a bunch of hussies. Like, they love to get down. Her sisters, they're loose, lascivious women. And she's the only one that's a virgin. And she's kind of considered plain and plump. She feels like everybody thinks that she's fat. And so she's just kind of never had anybody interested in her. When they start getting these letters from somebody that is staying in the castle, the letters are written by someone called the Beast. He asks for £1,000 from the trader that got the Laird and his family killed during the Battle of Culloden. And they're like, nobody has that money. Like, what is this guy talking about? And so the townsfolk decide, instead of money, they're going to give him a virgin sacrifice, because they think that that's the kind of thing that beasts like, that dragons like. I guess they've read this in a storybook somewhere. I don't know. But they decide they're going to give him a virgin sacrifice. And obviously, Gwendolyn is the only virgin pretty much in town. And so they just post her up on a tree and leave her there throughout the night. It's raining. They don't care. They're just like, hopefully they'll take our virgin sacrifice and leave us all the hell alone. And so somebody comes out and takes her down off this tree, and she wakes up in the castle. There's like clothes for her to wear. There's a guy who comes and brings her food, and she's kind of like, okay, whoever this dragon is, he's taking very good care of me. And then this guy starts to show up like during nighttime or in the dark, and he calls himself the beast, or he calls himself the dragon. He won't let her see his face, but he'll like watch her sleep and stuff like that. And it kind of goes from there. It was an interesting one. I ended up giving it 4 stars. This one was another good one by Teresa. I enjoyed this one. The story in and of itself, it did get a little bit slow in some parts. But as a whole, it was done really, really well. There is, I guess, what is supposed to be a twist at the end, but it wasn't a twist for me. Like, I knew from the start of the book. There's a couple of twists, but I saw them coming. They weren't surprises to me, but despite that, the book was still highly entertaining, and I enjoyed myself, especially after reading Charming the Prince. This was another fun one, and I think this one is based in the 1200s, because that one's the 1300s, and I think this one was the 1200s. So very, very, very far back in time. But yeah, I had fun with this one. I had fun with all the Teresa Medeiros books I read in May. I would say those were the better books that I read. I know. You're comfy, huh? Comfy. Well, if you made it to what will probably be a very long video, I'm gonna try and edit this as much as I can, but I'm expecting it to be a long one. If you have made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching. I will have my mid-year freakout tag coming out soon. Definitely looking forward to doing that tag, and I'm going to do the pet tag as well. We'll talk about Little Valentine here. That should be fun, and other things. There'll be other things. I've definitely got some videos I need to record. So keep an eye out for those, and otherwise, if you made it to the end, go ahead and leave me a blue heart emoji, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.